So if you could be here around 9, that would be great. Okay?
Well, listen here.
Hello, and welcome to 90 Day Fiancé Okay. I'm Mr. O, and today, Ms. H and I will be discussing Season 6, Episodes 14 and 15 of Before the 90 Days. In these episodes, Gino and Jasmine take a very short relationship break, David and Sheila get engaged, Dempsey and Statler don't see eye to eye on kids, Riley leaves an uninterested-seeming Violet, Christian claims he's innocently hitting on single ladies, Meisha gets spackled by Nicola, and Amanda and Razvan spend some time with his family. As always, we'll end with our students of the week, last dances, and life lessons. All right, thanks for listening, stay safe, and enjoy.
Hello, Mr. O.
Hello, Miss H.
I would say how are you, but given what you just told me happened at your school, I'm going to say probably not good.
Yeah, not great. We had a incident, and let's just put it this way. There's going to be grief counselors there tomorrow.
Oh, goodness.
One of those type of incidents that happened that we just found out about. So, yeah, not the greatest, not the best day, but I'm going to try to power through and go through these dumb people.
Oh, yeah.
Dumb nonsense.
Yeah, definitely some dumb nonsense going on. So why don't we start off with top contender for dumb nonsense, and that's Christian and Cleo. So Christian is relying on Cleo to cook this Thanksgiving dinner because he admits to not really knowing how. Cleo has questions on how to actually cream corn, but Christian has no idea. He was like, it just comes from the can. He starts to literally butter the chicken, but Cleo suggests that he tried to stuff the butter under the skin. Christian claims to have no emotional connection to the turkey, and Cleo makes a joke about not having any emotional connection to a woman he met in a bar and randomly invited to her holiday dinner cooked by his girlfriend. Luckily for everyone, the woman declined the invite due to other plans. Christian claims to be on his best behavior, especially since Jane, Cleo's friend, is joining them, and Jane doesn't have the best impression of him. Christian wishes Jane a happy Thanksgiving as he's trying to be friendly and pours everyone a glass of wine. Christian wants to make a good impression so that Jane doesn't encourage Cleo to leave him when he's gone. Jane is trying to have an open mind after not having a favorable opinion of him based on their last interaction. Cleo tells Jane about how Christian invited a rando. Jane asks if Christian has befriended any men randomly, and he says no. And Cleo and Jane both point out that Christian only seems to want to talk to women. Christian is feeling defensive that Cleo is telling Jane about this other woman. Jane asks what the motivation is for talking to strangers. Christian says he's just really social and feels like he's pent up if he doesn't just talk to people. Cleo doesn't want there to be conflict, but it does bother her that enough that she wants to ask more questions. Christian thinks that inviting a woman to their dinner isn't nefarious since it's with a bunch of other people. Christian doesn't consider it leading someone on and is kind of feeling offended since he thinks that's just who he is. Cleo says she's not uncomfortable with him having female friends, but talking to random single women out at the bar would cross the line. Christian then, according to Cleo, takes what she said out of context, and Cleo changes the subject to cheese. Jane thinks that Christian won't stop picking up random women at bars. Jane tries to exit immediately because things are just gotten awkward. So once Jane leaves, Christian tells Cleo that he feels like the bad guy and feels like he's being interrogated. Christian turns it around and blames Cleo for making him defensive. Christian continues to be defensive, so Cleo just gets a bit frustrated. Christian also doesn't want to promise to never do it again because he doesn't want to admit that he's been doing anything wrong this whole time. So I covered the first episode. We forgot to mention that we're doing 2 episodes in one because we were both gone. Yeah, sorry. We skipped over that part. So that was the first episode that we're covering, and Mr. O, second episode.
Take over for second episode. So on the second episode with them, Christian is running out of time to have his traditional English breakfast, but they're walking down the street and they definitely don't go for a traditional English breakfast, which to me just means beans.
Yeah.
And because they go to a donut shop instead. So Cleo is feeling a little conflicted about their relationship. On one hand, she really does feel a good connection to Christian, but there's still a lot of issues, mostly about what happened at Thanksgiving and how he seems to just flirt with any woman he sees alone, which makes Cleo worry about fidelity. So they eat their donuts, and Cleo wants to have an explicit conversation about exclusivity, like for when the trip is over. Christian is confused where this is coming from and says, well, of course he wants to stay exclusive. And she says that the behavior, it's mostly about his behavior, about being overly friendly with stranger women. So like, and she kind of even clouds it. She's like, I'm not trying to isolate you. You should try to make new friends. You should do things with your existing friends, but just maybe stop approaching single women at the bar. So Christian says, there's nothing wrong with the way he approaches women at the bar. And he even says, there's no way any of them could construe him approaching them at the bar as hitting on them. That's just the way he does it. Well, at least in my opinion, except for the fact that approaching women in bars is pretty much a lot of people's definition of what hitting on women is.
Right. Yeah.
So he's kind of resentful about this whole thing because he just feels like he's being held down and pinned down, and he's a social butterfly. He needs to spread his wings, and there's no reason he's given her no reason for him not to trust him. So he asks, are you going to be able to trust me like while I'm in another country? And she's like, well, pretty much as long as you're not trying to talk to single women in bars. And she starts to cry, and he's like, listen. This is pretty much, I'm paraphrasing. He calms her down by saying, if I didn't wanted to date with other women, I would just break up with you. Like, I'm not cheating before I cheated on you.
All right.
You have nothing to worry about. I would just break up with you if I wanted someone else. All right. So I guess I'll go to that. It's like, where is he drawing this distinction between sidling up to the single woman at the bar and chatting her up and hitting on them? Like, that's pretty much what everybody thinks he's doing except for him. Yeah?
Yeah, I think, like, I don't know. I mean, I think that he is exploring other options more, seriously. I think that he may not necessarily, like, cheat on someone or cheat on Cleo. But what I think he's doing, I think this is what his game plan is, right? He's gonna just like see if he finds anyone better. And if he does, then he'll break up with Cleo. Then he'll go circle back and, date whoever he just met. I think that's his plan.
I mean, I think I think a lot of it is, I think he's lying to himself. I think he thinks he's just being friendly.
Yeah.
But when you point out to him, it's like, never seem to be friendly with dudes, right?
Right.
It's nice to have the attention of an attractive person from the other gender, right? And that you're attracted to. It doesn't mean you're going to do anything with them, but I can see where you're like, oh, she's cute. I would like to talk to her because she's cute. That might not be the conscious part of you where you're just like, oh, she looks like she needs a friend to talk to her, right? But I think that was very good the way, like Jane pointed it out. It was like kind of weird how it's always women.
Yeah.
Like,
and single women. Like, I know people who really do that, right? But they talk to everyone. They'll talk to couples. They'll talk to single guys. They'll talk to single girls. Like, they don't care.
They talk to a group of guys. They talk to a group of girls.
Right.
They'll talk to literally anybody that's there.
Yes.
For sure.
And I do have we also find it to be a bit odd, to be honest, because it's just like, we're going out with a friend and this friend is like literally never hanging out with us. He's constantly meeting new people and hanging out with new randos. I think that's odd, but at least I really don't question his intention because he's talking to all groups. But Christian clearly has a type of person he's talking to, so you can't help but be suspicious. It can't be about friendship if you're only talking to single women. Right.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that he just gets so defensive about it.
Yes.
It's like, well, I'm just friendly. It's like, yes, you're friendly to single women.
Yeah.
Like it's like, yeah. You're not a sexual harasser, right? Because you know that those things are bad, but you have like the inclinations for that. You're like, ooh, girls. I like girls. I'll talk to girls. Yeah. Like how attractive he finds them certainly from what we've seen has an impact on how willing and much he wants to go talk to them, whether he admits that to himself or not, right?
Yes. No, I can definitely see that. Like, not wanting to admit it. I don't even think to himself. I think out loud, right? Because I am sure, and I'm willing to put money on this. He has been called a creep. He comes off
definitely
as a creep, right? Like he definitely gives creep vibes. He has to have been called a creep. And so it's like, he can't say that kind of stuff out loud. So he definitely keeps it to himself.
Yeah, he does. But I think he thinks that's unfair because I feel like he goes in and he never gets to the point. I'm going to put it this way. Most people's game involves, if he really was trying to pick up these women.
Yeah.
And I don't know that he is necessarily. I think he does just want to have conversations with them. It's just like, he doesn't, lying to himself or being creepy is that there's like a line he doesn't cross. He doesn't go up there and be like, he says, chats him up, starts going. But that part where he starts like talking about how sexy you are and like, ooh, that dress looks real nice on your ass. Like that stuff he doesn't get to, I don't think.
No, I don't think so either.
And so he's like, and so in his mind, that's like, well, I didn't cross that line. I didn't make gross things about her body. I didn't try to touch her inappropriately. That means I'm not being creepy.
Right.
So how could you possibly call me creepy?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's something where it's like, if he could defend it, you know, if it was like, look at my innocent texts, or, you know, listen to what I literally said to the person.
Right. I asked about their birthday and what state they're from.
Yeah.
Right. And like made a dumb dad joke. Right. It's like, those aren't any things that if you had those conversations with a coworker, nobody would be like, oh, you better take it easy, buddy.
Right.
Like,
yeah, definitely.
All right. So let's go on. And you know what? I just want to get them out of the way because they annoyed the hell out of me. Let's talk Gino and Jasmine.
Okay.
So things are pretty bad for Gino. And this fight in particular, when, you know, we had this huge blowout. I feel like it was forever ago because it was 2 weeks ago. They had a huge blowout and she was like, I cheated on you with my ex, who I like fucked a month ago. So Gino hopes and thinks, you know, the probability is it's one of those instances where she just was really mad. And so she says things that she doesn't mean and are lies just out of frustration to get him pissed off. So he's sitting and he wants to sit outside and talk to her about these things. So he says he doesn't think she should have been yelling about cheating, and then asks, well, is what you said even true? She says, no, it's not true. I just lashed out because I was hurt that he didn't say that Gino did not say that she was more important than his family. So he tried to justify that being like, I don't know. I said you were tied. That's pretty important. My family's super important to me. Don't you know? But it's not enough for her. And she says that when he leaves tomorrow, they should just go their separate ways. Gino doesn't know what to think because he's said that she said this thing has been over many, many, many times before. But she's like, no, really, for this time, it is love over because I just don't feel loved. And this is just not working. And then we just start doing laps around the same discussion for a while. So I'll skip that part of repeating. But she is really trying to say, she really is trying to tell him that she's trying to say it's over. So he makes some weird faces for a while and says, well, if that's what you want me to do, then that's what we'll do. And then he tells us in an interview that he doesn't want to go. But she doesn't seem to be making interested in making amends right now. And so why don't you pick up from there? Because right now seems to be a pretty short period of time.
Right. So Gino arrives at the apartment alone because Jasmine's decided to end their relationship and Gino is heartbroken. But he also is kind of angry because he feels like he's done everything to make her happy, even though she blows up at him. He says he's just sick of it. He's going to pack up his stuff and go. But after packing for just 20 minutes, you know, from the time that they've been separated, Jasmine comes back and asks to talk to him. Jasmine cries, saying she loves him and wants to make this work, but doesn't know how. Gino hugs her and comforts her. Jasmine says she gets so angry and she just can't think clearly. She says she's broken and can't live without him, and she doesn't want him to stop loving her. She tells us that she feels like she is to blame because she has so much baggage, and maybe it is the best if he just leaves and forgets about her. Jasmine said as soon as he left, she imagined her life without him, and it made her physically ill. Jasmine says she understands that his family is important, and she says she doesn't want to lose him, and she wants to earn her place in his life. Gino tells her that he has had a hard time handling her when she blows up and gets angry, and he says that it's not getting any better and they just can't seem to overcome this. Gino is on the fence about getting back together because he doesn't feel like anything is going to change. Jasmine says she wants to give him something, and she gets down on one knee and makes a speech about how she's going to change. She shows him the original engagement ring that she claimed to have lost and says that she's been a bitch and she wanted an upgrade, but she says how much this ring means to her because it's from him, so forget about the upgrade. She asks him to ask her to be his fiancé again. Gino accepts and puts the ring on her finger. He tells us that he was touched that she had the original engagement ring. Jasmine was nervous that Gino wouldn't accept her proposal, and she wouldn't have blamed him. Jasmine jokes that Gino can be her sugar daddy if he wants, but she says she will proudly wear the cheapo ring, according to her. Jasmine offers a massage to Gino, and they close the door to the bedroom. Gino is getting ready to leave for good now. Even though things have been rocky, Jasmine feels good about working through their issues. Gino has left Jasmine a little cash as well as a money transfer to help Jasmine pay for rent. The plan is that she'll be getting someplace cheaper, but also she'll have a 6-month lease to make her feel more stability. Jasmine admits that maybe she was a little too unreasonable or selfish for wanting him to pay the rent for her very expensive place. Gino tries to assure Jasmine that her visa will come through faster than she thinks it will. Gino thinks that the trip was incredibly productive, and he feels like their connection is stronger than before. Jasmine is crying and upset with immigration for taking so long and keeping them apart. As Gino is going through immigration, they ask him to take off his hat, and we get a sly side smile from him as he complies, and we get to see his weird, patchy baldness again.
It's, very weird.
It's very odd. Yeah. So I'm sure, when you were voicing your frustration before, it's because it's like these two always seem to, it's the same story with them. Like, is this the second time we've seen them? Or second, right? Whatever it was exactly the same.
They keep doing the same thing. Yes. It's literally the same story. He does something dumb. She blows up at him. And then she
maybe takes it a step too far. Then he isn't sure if he wants to forgive her for being so angry. And then,
but then it's like, and every time she comes back and like the thing, she just seems like the most pathetic person in the world. Mm-hmm. Like begging for, and it's part of it is because we know who Gino is.
Yeah.
Part of it, I think a good 80% of it, even though 80% of it is like begging someone to be with you like that is pathetic.
Yeah.
Like, and let alone, and then you add the other 20 part where you're begging this guy.
Oh God, I know, right?
Like this asshole, like this.
I do not get why she is so into him.
No, I don't think she. The thing about it is the way she described it is I imagine my life without him, right? I don't think she imagined her life without him. She imagined her life without being in a relationship or having someone.
Sure.
I think she just has severe attachment issues.
Yeah.
And she's like, this is the one. Gotta grab onto it because it's the one that's here.
I could see that. Yeah.
And so when she imagines her life without Gino, she's just like, oh my God, not being in a relationship, not having somebody who at least pretends they want to be with me is just, that's completely unacceptable. Like, and so right now she doesn't have anybody else to fill that role. It feels like a complete lost cause to her, like a complete drowning.
Yeah, well, I think there's also an element of her life is kind of not so good here at the moment because of her work situation. So if she didn't have him, she wouldn't have necessarily a financial future, because if we are to believe all the series of events that she's talked about, she can't get another teaching job because of her nudes that were leaked online. And so if that's the case, It's like, what is she going to do for money? And so if she's not getting Gino's money, like, what is she going to do?
But part of that is like, okay, yes, that's a hard situation. That was also like a year and a half or 2 years ago. What has she been doing to get herself something else besides teaching? Like, it's not like that's the only job in Panama, and no one will hire you in Panama because you have a couple of nudes on the internet somewhere. I don't believe that. Like, you got to be able to do something,
right? Like, you could be a server or something like that. But I could also see her being too snobbish for that.
Well, then that's her problem.
Yeah,
right.
Well,
like, it's not like she does have a financial future, but she'd rather, for some reason, attach herself to this piece of garbage than to serve people at a restaurant, which doesn't make any sense to me at all. Like, I would the opposite. I will do anything to be free of this guy.
Yeah.
This guy's awful.
Yeah. I mean, they're both confusing.
They're both terrible.
They're both terrible and confusing. Like, I don't understand either of them, how they are so drawn to each other. And I'm also confused by Gino too, because there were definitely spots in the season this year, especially at the beginning of the season, where I'm like, this guy really hates her.
Mm-hmm.
I really thought that.
Yeah, he does when she's being independent and she's asserting herself, right? But how did he get into her? He loves the sugar daddy websites.
Yeah.
Like, he loves nothing else than people being like, oh, yeah, please, daddy. So when she got in there and she begged him and she literally got on her hands and knees to beg him back, that's the most turned on he's ever been by her, guaranteed. Like, that just, he likes having control. And like, there's a situation where now he has control over someone. Someone is like begging to be with me. This is the greatest thing ever. That's when he really feels the most for her. When she feels secure in the relationship and then is like, peel the potato, you dipshit, then he hates her.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, speaking of another couple that kind of has that push and pull, let's talk about Razvan and Amanda. So Amanda's trying to calm Razvan down as they are on their way to meet Razvan's parents. He can definitely sense that she's trying harder, and he thinks it's because she's afraid of losing him for good. Amanda is being very playful and affectionate, and Razvan is feeling a little bit of hope. Amanda recognizes it's her fault that they've been fighting, and she said some truly terrible and hurtful things. She thinks it's on her to prove to him that she really cares and wants to be in this relationship. Amanda keeps checking in on him and asking him if he's still upset. Razvan seems to be coming around, but he says that he's confused, not really upset. He can't just completely let it go. Amanda wants to fight for the relationship and agrees to take it day by day. She thinks that meeting his family is pretty bad timing, and she's worried that if it doesn't go well, it will be the end of their relationship. Amanda has sweaty palms as they are on their way to see Razvan's parents and brother. Razvan is hoping things will be better between them, and Amanda will try to make a good impression. This is the first woman Razvan has brought home since his ex-wife. Amanda feels added pressure for his mom to like her since she didn't like Razvan's ex-wife. Amanda doesn't want his parents to pick up on their tension, and she feels she is not right and feel that she is not right for them. Amanda gives Daniela, Razvan's mom, a hug as a greeting. Avram, his dad, also hugs her. They have a nice spread of food prepared, and Amanda asks Razvan to offer his mom help. She declines, and they start eating the homemade food. Daniela asks about Amanda's children, who she praises as being very good. Amanda then asks Razvan to ask his parents why they didn't like his ex-wife. Daniela doesn't say anything, and Avram says it's simple. She was pushy, and Razvan was unhappy. They didn't communicate, and they all thought that she really didn't love him. Avram then cries because he also felt hurt by their relationship. Razvan says that they weren't a match, and Amanda asks, does he think they're a match? And Razvan says he doesn't know because Amanda said they weren't a match. Avram has picked up on energy between Razvan and Amanda that seems uneasy. Razvan felt like he couldn't be himself with his ex, and he's starting to feel the same in some ways with Amanda. He says he's afraid if he is truly himself, she will get mad, and when they fight, he just doesn't see love in her eyes at all.
All right, so then we go to the second part. And these two are really a big part of the whole thing. So Razvan, after that, has a beach day planned with him and his family, and because it's their last day in Croatia. So Amanda says that, after all that conversation last night, they're in a much better place today, which is code for they had enough sex that they both need energy drinks in the morning to go with their mojitos. So Razvan is happy that Amanda seems to be, trying to work things out, but he's still not 100% back into this relationship. So Razvan's family shows up, and before long, they start talking to each other, and, you're an amazing cook to Amanda. You're just a nice person from Daniela, and things like that. Razvan leaves to change to his bathing suit, and his brother Fabian translates the conversation that he's gone, and it's just a bunch of stuff about Razvan. So once he comes back, he needs to have his mom put his headscarf on to keep his bald head from getting sunburned, and then he goes for a walk with Daniela for kind of advice about what to do here. So Amanda is immediately suspicious that Razvan is going to say something that's going to make mom not like her. So anyway, they sit on some rocks, and he tells mom kind of how inconsistent Amanda can be. She's sweet one minute, then she's mean the next, and he thinks she might be sabotaging things, based on her previous trauma. So Daniela gets where he's coming from, but she's worried that, I don't know if it's the trauma or maybe she's just a fickle person. So in the next scene, for their last night in Croatia, he practices, hailing down a cab movie style, and they go to a pool hall. So Amanda is all up in her feelings because she feels like the vibe totally changed when he came back with after talking to his mom at the beach. And she thinks that he told his mom some bad things. So he starts to play. And it's before they start to play, Razvan, I thought that was really cute. He talks a big game about, I could do this with my eyes closed. I'm so good at this. Yeah. And then he's just awful. Yeah. Just terrible. He can't even hit the cue ball. But she's way better. But he's like, at least I look good when I play. And it's like, okay, yes. So they start to talk about the beach. And that's her opening to get to be like, what did you talk to your mom about? So he says he asked for advice and told her about the fights, which is exactly what Amanda was concerned about. So then she chastises him for bringing third parties into the relationship that interfere and become too much. And when he tries to be like, I don't think I asked her too much, she's just like, you're annoying. Take your turn. Play pool. Which is, and then so now she's kind of demonstrating the exact same behavior that he was needed to talk to his mom about. He was like, we were having fun like 30 seconds ago. And now you're like, oh, you're annoying. Shut up. I don't want. So the next day, things are tense as Razvan is doing his influencer work of getting paid. It sounds like he was just shouting out the women who were giving him money. Yeah. He was like, hi, oh, hi, Nicole, oh, hi. So Amanda is upset that their relationship hasn't made any more progress, and she needs more solid answers about a future plan. So when Razvan is done, she asks, kind of, I'm leaving, and I want to know where we're going. So when I leave, are we going to be engaged?
Oh, God.
Razvan is surprised and confused that this conversation is happening now because she seems like she's trying to like lock things down. And he's like, we fought for like 70% of the time we've been here. Like what? Why? Like he says that, it's, I know it's, and she goes, well, it's been so hard for me. And he's kind of like tired of hearing that. Yeah. He's like, yeah. It was hard for you, but I'm not Jason. And you said some really hurtful things to me that actually hurt. And they still do when you can't just take them back. So anyway, and he, as far as he's concerned, after all the shit she's pulled on him and shit she said to him, like him just seeing through that and being like, maybe it's just the trauma is a pretty intense commitment, honestly. Yeah. The implication would be like most people would have broken up with you a long time ago. Yeah. So Amanda says that it doesn't sound like he even knows if he wants to be with her now. And he's pretty much like, yes, that's what I was saying. Right? So I guess my question when I got to that, because I said it when I did this, it's not even a question. It's just like the audacity of this woman.
I know. I hate this girl so much. And, it's one of those things where I certainly have empathy for her situation, right? And we've been saying this from the very beginning. This is someone who should not be in any kind of relationship that, by nature of it, has to be somewhat serious. You traveled to be with him for weeks at a time, and you kind of almost had to because of the fact that this is a long distance relationship. If you are just trying to check out the dating scene, this is not what you do. You just, meet someone around town. You don't even have to talk every day. If you went on a date, great, worked out, maybe go on another one a few weeks later, but what really pisses me off is how she keeps on using this as an excuse when she is choosing this every step of the way.
She is, yes. I wouldn't say she's choosing violence, but she is. But then every step of the way, she's like, what she actively chooses. I could forgive him. I could be patient, or I can be a mean ass bitch and say, what the fuck, man? And every time she chooses mean ass bitch. Right. Every time. Yeah. Right. And that's not on her trauma. If he's trying to think she's maybe driving her away or something, but I see what you're saying too, because it's that's always what's the best test of a, fledgling relationship. You've been seeing each other for a few months. It's pretty regular. And it's try to take that weekend away, see how that goes. Right. Right. And she did that, just jumped way into it. But yeah, she doesn't see things. And maybe this does have to do with the trauma, but I don't think it does. I think Razvan's right. She just might be a fickle person. Yeah. Because she does not see things the way they are. She saw this visit and said, yeah, we should still get engaged. And he's like, why? What?
Yeah, exactly. What? Yeah, why? It's just really frustrating to me that, she thinks that he would still want to after her putting him through all of that. And that's the other thing where, going back to what you said, she's just not self-aware at all. She, to me, is just very entitled. She's very immature. She comes off like she's this great prize. And of course he wants me. It's up to me to decide if I want him or not. And it was only to the point where she thought he might not be into it that all of a sudden she starts turning on the charm and really upping the affection and everything that.
And putting out. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. It's only then was she oh, okay, let me try get you turned on and stuff. But before that, she wasn't, she was taking her own sweet time, which is fine. But at the same time, it's just I don't know. Just her intentions are not good.
No. And then like even with the pool hall stuff, that bothered me. Is she was like, I don't think you should be telling your mom about this stuff. Here's why I don't think so, blah, blah, blah. And then as soon as he's like, well, let me tell you my side. She's like, shut up. You're annoying. Yeah. I don't want to hear it. Right. That's what the hell is that?
Right.
Like, what? That's the person you want to be engaged to. You're annoying. Shut up. Like, and then I couldn't do it because my partner pointed it out and I couldn't stop looking at it. She is constantly touching her hair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, every time she talks, you can't see me. It's just one hand on one side, the other hand on the other side. She just talks with her hands stroking the front of her hair.
That's interesting to me. I very much associate that with like a teenage girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, teenage girls definitely do that quite a bit. What I also thought was interesting about touching her hair is maybe she feels self-conscious about it because her roots are growing out. Like, girl's really blonde. I was like kind of surprised. I was like, oh, especially because it's like if you're blonde, it's like usually you want to go lighter rather than darker. Like I only know a few people who are just like,
most people who grew up blonde are like when they get older are like, I'm not as blonde as I used to be.
Let me make it lighter.
Back.
Yeah,
I want to go lighter. Yeah, but she has a weird way of doing it because putting that huge middle part that is like a hard part is like really highlights the roots coming out. But it's also like I feel like the more devices she has, like, because she's just using her hands on her hair, it's one level, and then she's the meanest and asking about the are we going to get engaged? I can't believe you're not into this. She's got like a hair straightener going the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
Like the more
That's
things she has in her hair.
That's not the first time we've seen the hair straightener either. That time that she was talking to production about, like, oh well,
when she's at her meanest, that hair straightener's in her hand.
Right.
Like the more mean she gets, the more
straight her hair is.
The more intense the hair like tools are. Like, oh, if it's just a brush, she's going to be in the middle mean. That hair straightener, forget it. Off the charts.
Yeah. No.
All right, so let's go. Start with another one. Oh no, let's go Statler and Dempsey, and then we got to go to. There's a couple that I pulled the wrong straw. I have to do because Meisha and Nico were only in episode 1, and Riley and Violet were only in episode 2.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's do Statler and Dempsey first. Though. So we're back in Statler's caravan, getting ready to meet up with Dempsey's friends. So Dempsey has developed some doubts recently, so she doesn't feel like things are 100%. But they're more on the same page after all the moving in stuff. So Statler thinks Statler is so different than me. Thinks meeting with friends is just miserable because you have to just go in there and fight for acceptance. And it's just awful. She's really nervous about it. So they get to the pub and the friends Lindsay and George are already there. So they fill the friends in with what they've been doing so far and talking about their plans for Dempsey's birthday, which Statler is going to surprise her, but then blows a surprise by saying they're going to Edinburgh. And then she tells them about what they're going to do at Edinburgh, which is like sex stuff, which she's good at, and then talks about many of her sexual exploits and adventures, just like word vomiting at them. That takes them aback a little bit. So then in a bit, Dempsey brings in how Statler wanted to move in without first discussing it with her. And Statler said, that's a typical lesbian move. So anyway, especially since, Dempsey is, it's especially concerning since Dempsey is the only reason she wants to be in this part of the world anyway. She's just like, it's cold as hell here. What the hell? They don't like this. I wouldn't want to be there for her, anything but her. So anyway, she just cannot manage to think anything without saying it this whole time. It's just complete, no filter. So when Statler goes to the bathroom, they tell Dempsey that, friends do, that it's kind of a red flag she wanted to move in too fast, and especially for a person who values their independence like Dempsey. So after the friends, we pack ahead to them packing for Scotland. Again, it's a, quote, surprise trip. Dempsey knows the city they're going to, but doesn't know anything about the lodgings or the plans. So when it's time to pack, Statler's ADHD really gets in the way because it's very much like, here's this other thing I see. Oh, I put that, and nothing actually ends up in the suitcase. So, and Dempsey still has the discussion with her friends in the back of her head. So Statler thinks that she may have asked of herself in front of her friends, but they didn't say that she was an ass. They said she was codependent. So Statler says, well, yeah, what's codependent? That's what you want to be. That's what a relationship is, right? Gosh. You just want to be with the person all the time. And that's codependent, and I'm codependent. But they are in the car, and 3 hours later, they get to where they're staying, which is a castle. The castle is a big part of the surprise. So Dempsey's very impressed with the huge space and the huge bathtub that they get to using right away. So they kind of have a romantic moment in the tub. And this is one of those moments where Dempsey's like, maybe this isn't so bad after all. And that's where we leave there. So
yeah, but then so it's Dempsey's birthday, and Statler and her are in Scotland. They're staying in the castle. She already says they had castle sex. Check that off the list. Dempsey says that she was having doubts about Statler after Statler met her friends, but she said that this is the happiest she's ever been in a relationship. Dempsey is starting to warm up to the idea of having Statler move in. Statler makes some off comment about how they would have children with the most amazing eyes since they both have beautiful eyes, and Dempsey responds with something like she would want to carry a child and be a full-time mom. Dempsey says that they would be great parents, but Statler says she doesn't think she would be all that great, and she actually doesn't want kids. Dempsey was told at the beginning of their relationship that Statler was open to having kids, so this is kind of news to her. They are just going to ignore that conflict right now since they're having such a good time in Scotland. Dempsey says that they will have a talk before Statler leaves or they move in together. Dempsey and Statler are eating breakfast the next morning, and Dempsey wants clarity on the whole kids thing because she doesn't want their relationship to be a waste of time. Dempsey asks if they got married and she wanted kids, how would Statler feel about that? Statler asks why she wants kids, and Dempsey says that she would make a great mom and kids make everything better. I don't know about that, but Statler says that kids seem like a lot of work and cost a lot. Dempsey points out that her dad's relationship with her and her siblings is kind of what inspires her. She wants that same thing with someone else. Dempsey says that she would want one of her own and to adopt one. And Statler says that she wouldn't want to adopt at all because seeing as she is an adoptee, she knows what a struggle it is. Statler always felt like something was missing, and she feels like she has adoptee trauma. She hasn't quite worked out. Dempsey then says that she will have a child someday. Statler says that having kids is a deal breaker because she absolutely doesn't want kids. Dempsey then excuses herself from the table and says, "Good talk." Statler was hoping that she would be enough for her. Dempsey is frustrated that that's not the conversation they've had before. To her, it's over because kids are a deal breaker for both of them. All right, so it definitely doesn't seem that they are on the same page. And do you think it's because they were both kind of lying about their stance on kids?
It sounds like they were.
Yeah, hoping that
it sounds like they...
Right.
Yeah, that it would blow over, right?
Yeah.
That
one of them would concede to the other.
Yeah, but what... Okay, so it's one thing... They both said it though.
Right.
Because it's one thing if like it's a little more clear when it's one person. Like if it's me going into a relationship and I'm like, I'm done. I'm not having any more kids.
Right.
I'm done with kids. And then to have somebody come into that and then get mad at me for not wanting kids, it's like, well, that's been plain from the beginning.
Right.
Like you're the one who we're fooling yourself. But it does sound like they both said,
oh, we're open to having kids or not having kids. Oh, okay.
I'm open to having kids or I'm open to not having kids. And it wasn't. And I'm not even sure how actually prior to this conversation, how 100% opposed to having kids Statler was. But like this conversation has made her dig in her heels.
Yeah.
Right. And she's just like, no. Well, I'm never having kids then. No.
Right. Because it does seem weird that Statler was the one who brought it up in the first place. Like, oh, we would have the cutest kids. So, like, if I was Dempsey, like, I would kind of be like, oh, okay, yeah. She's talking about having kids. Like, that, seems, I would, with, in addition to Statler actually explicitly saying she was open to it, I would kind of still think, yep, she's still open to it. So to go from there to literally 24 hours later, I would never have kids. I absolutely don't want kids. It's like, whoa, what happened in the last 24 hours?
Right. That doesn't seem like a decision you make like in that time frame, like and on that thing. So I definitely think it was a little bit of a heel digging because as soon as I think she really was kind of, maybe not 100% set against kids until Dempsey said, I'm 100% for having kids. And then she was like, well, then I'm going to be the opposite. No, never having kids. I also thought it was interesting how Statler brought up the adoption.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Right. And it definitely sounded like another kind of thing like that. Like she was like, well, how would you feel about adopting? Usually if people say that, what they're looking for is I would be totally open for adoption. That sounds great. Like I just want to raise kids and have a happy family. And then as soon as Dempsey said, I'm open to adoption, she's like, no, I could never do that. Never would I adopt. And it's like, well, then why did you bring it up?
Yeah.
I was very confused about that whole way that conversation went.
Yeah, I don't really know what her intention is, because maybe she just was looking to point out like the downsides of kids.
Yeah. And I mean, I definitely had some like issues. Like she has her own truth and she lived her life. But like, I definitely think she was conflating shitty mom trauma with adoptee trauma. Right?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Because it does, for everything she say, sound like her mom was a piece of work, right? And
right.
Like, and a lot of the things I felt she said about specifically about adoptees, I've known plenty of biological parents who give those kids those same feelings. Like, you need to earn your place in my heart. Mm-hmm. You should be grateful that I even brought you here. Right. Like those kind of things she was talking about that, like, I just think that's a shitty mom thing. I don't know that that's necessarily an adoptee thing.
Sure, because I could kind of see how, if you have a kind of contemptuous relationship with your adopted mom, how it's easier to feel like you're missing something, right? And it's the reason.
Where was the good mom I was promised?
Right,
yeah,
right. Is because your real mom isn't in the picture. So
sure, I could see that. It's just man, yeah. This is just. You can't make assumptions with this stuff.
No,
like, this is stuff. All right, so now I think the only two we have left.
We have David and Sheila. Yeah, we can talk about them next. Let's go David and Sheila. So they're on their romantic beach getaway without an interpreter, and David hopes that Sheila will continue to practice her sign language. They're going on a boat tour where they will go snorkeling. David hopes that today is a memorable day because he's hoping to propose. It ends up that Sheila is scared of what could be in the water. David is so happy that Sheila is really trying to sign, even if it's not perfect. Sheila is nervous about signing because she doesn't want to be wrong, and she wishes that she had more confidence in her signing. Sheila and David get in the water to snorkel. They see a turtle and they're signing underwater, and David says that part of the reason why he really loves swimming is because it's an activity you don't need to hear, and communication underwater relies on signing and eye contact. David sees Sheila's effort into signing as proof that she cares. He's now very confident in their future. Later that day, David is tucking the ring into his pants as Sheila shows off her fancy dress. David thinks that nothing is a sure thing and he'll be nervous until she says yes. David feels that he has finally found true love in Sheila, and he hopes that she believes in it too and says yes. They both drink a glass of wine, and Sheila immediately is turned off because it's strong and she says it smells funny. When their food comes, Sheila doesn't want to eat because she's lost her appetite. She then starts to cry, and David remembers the stress Sheila is under with her mom passing away and her son not really wanting to move to the U.S. He's now wondering if this really is the right time to propose. Sheila is actually just sad that David will be gone soon, so David thinks maybe it is the best time to propose to reassure her and make her feel hopeful about their future. As David is in the middle of a speech about their relationship, Sheila notes that David is sweating a lot. We see David literally sweating through his shirt. He stands up to take another sip of wine, and while Sheila is distracted by drinking water, he takes out the ring and says he has something for her as he gets down on his knee and simply asks if she will marry him. Sheila has tears in her eyes as she asks if he's for real. She signs yes, and David puts the ring on her finger. David clumsily spills the wine as he stands up, but they kiss and are all smiles. Sheila tells us she wasn't expecting this, but she's very happy.
All right, so on the second half, their weekend of luxury is all up, and David and Sheila need to head back to Cebu City. So David is sad to leave a place where they had so much fun, becoming engaged, and having lots of, I'm going to put this in quotes, memories, like doing it missionary and doggy style and all kinds of positions that he signs with his hands. So anyway, Sheila has been signing this whole time, and which is David really is really happy about. So she's nervous to tell her father and son about them getting engaged, especially since in the early conversation with John Real, he said he didn't really want to move to the U.S. And Sheila has no intention of leaving the Philippines without her son. So they get back to, and Simplico and John Real are sitting outside. They're drinking some Cokes, and Sheila gets straight to the point, tells them they're engaged. So John Real, they kind of ask how he feels, and he takes a beat and says he's happy. Then they ask how he would feel about moving to the States, and then we have some more dramatic music and some more beats before he says, "Oh, he'll go. he's excited. And then he says he's excited to go to America because the houses are big and, the food is good, delicious food, which is not something, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I thought people,
I know,
different countries, different things. I'm usually I always thought foreign people were like, your food is like junk food. I mean, if you're a kid and you're like, wait, they have like cookies and like popcorn and cheeseburgers everywhere. That sounds great. Anyway, so he tells us in an interview that he was nervous about meeting David at first, but he clearly loves his mother and he's a happy person, even if he is a mute. So he also asks like David and Sheila if they're going to have 5 kids, which seemed like some sort of inside joke thing. And they're like, haha, yes.
Oh, gosh.
So we get to the scene where David has to pack up and leave, which is just mostly full of them making sad faces and riding in the car and signing how much they're going to miss each other. And he says he wants to bring her over to the Philippines, but he really doesn't have any idea what he's in for with this K1. So the goodbye at the airport is very emotional, involves David loudly crying and tears from Sheila as well before he finally leaves. So I don't know. What do you think kind of got John Reel's change of heart from I have my friends here to like, oh, I'll move to America?
I can't imagine that he's super stoked about the random house that they're living in, and I'm sure that's got to be traumatic. Like basically our house killed grandma. I can't imagine that he's like wanting to live in that situation. So I feel like he probably has maybe a higher than reality expectation of how nice America's going to be. But I'm sure he sees his own situation and is like, well, it's got to be better than this.
Yeah.
So let's try it out. Because I think also kids don't have like that sense of permanence, right? Like, oh, I can just come back if I hate it. I'll just live with grandpa. Yeah.
Also in terms of like the size of the houses, he might not hit. I think this in terms of the size of the houses, is he imagining like, the Fresh Prince house, right? That's where he's going to live? But like he's going to have like, there'll be like air conditioning, like and things like that. Like that sounds, it'll definitely, be, I don't know if I'll say an improvement, but it will be an improvement based on where he is now. I'm like, I hope there's other family around for grandpa. Like, I don't want him to leave. I don't want them to leave him all by himself there.
Yeah, that's kind of true, especially because grandma isn't around. But I mean, quite honestly, and this is the kind of interesting thing. They're definitely like in it for the long haul, where like they're planning on it being years before she'll be able to get there. And it's kind of like too long. John Reel, like, will he really want to move there when he's like practically an adult?
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know. Yeah, but I hope that they have more family. I mean, we didn't meet more family, but I do hope there's more family and dad just isn't in this like practically broken home by himself.
Right. And well, he doesn't look like he can work very much. So we have to give him money too. All right. So let's go. So we have 2 more. And like, I have to talk about both of them because Meisha and Nico were only in episode 1.
All right.
So this is back in the day. So we start in a chapel with Nicola saying the Ave Maria and singing the Ave Maria, and praying the rosary. So it's 5 days. We keep counting down on all these before it's time for Meisha to go home. And he wants to make this work so that 7 years of effort don't go down the drain. So to kind of, save things, they go to the Dead Sea, which according to Nicola is the location of Sodom and Gomorrah before they were destroyed by God. I'm really curious about the provenance of some of the things he says.
Yeah.
So like, did he just make that up? Is there actually a legend that says that? I don't know. He just says these things like as if they're
and I will take your word for it as being someone who was very educated in Catholic religion.
Yeah, I don't remember that ever coming up. Sodom and Gomorrah were things, but like the location of them, I think was pretty much up for dispute. Or, we're also Catholic and we're like, did they even really exist? Or just a story? Like there's a whole thing. Anyway, so as they approach, it looks less like the fire and brimstone that destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah than that. So they get there and Meisha like tastes the water, which of course is salt. It's the Dead Sea. It's the saltiest body of water on earth. So she says it tastes like a really salty, dirty martini. So next up, Nicola is trying to be romantic they're doing like a thing where they're doing like a mud bath. He covers her in mud, she was clearly psyched up for it to be like, you're going to rub mud all over my body and it'll be sensual and caressing. And he just like slap, plop, move. And he's just like, this is not sexy.
Right. She likened it to spackling.
Spackling. Yes. Anyway, so Meisha, right. So maybe she wishes he was a little more flirty and fun and less more like drywall. So she understands that it's his lack of experience, but then gets in a conversation about like how, you're not very experienced. Maybe you could ask me things, because it's one of those things. He always is telling her about, this is where Sodom and Gomorrah was. This is where the refugees from this, right? He has all the answers. But in this realm of being sexy and having sex, it's definitely her that has more of the answers. But he doesn't think he has to do that. I mean, they told him they teach you in 5th grade how to have sex.
Oh, God.
So
I don't think they're teaching 5th graders good sex. I just don't. It's all mechanics.
Yes, it's all this part fits into this part, the end. Right? So yes, there's definitely not like, I really sincerely hope they're not teaching like technique.
How to pleasure a woman, the best.
Let's hope not. Like, do the ABCs, like none of that.
God.
Right? Like,
very concerning.
So anyway, he's confident he'll be ready when for sex the time comes. He might have to get out of his old sex ed book from 5th grade. But in an interview, evidently what is it? Oh. So anyway, they get in the water to wash off the mud, and while they're in there, he shows off his best dirty dancing moves. Like he just like starts dancing in the water for some reason. So then they go to the old city of Jerusalem and do the like real stations of the cross. Like they actually get an actual cross and walk through the streets of Jerusalem being like, this is where Jesus was sentenced. This is where he walked next, like following the path of Jesus to the crucifixion. They're both really into it. Of all the things that are very Catholic, Stations of the Cross is right up there.
Sure.
So the next day, they're getting coffee, and Nicholas shows how he's adjusting by like listing the most basic things in the relationship. Like, I got you the type of coffee that you ordered. I listened to what restaurants you wanted to go to. So he tells us that he might be ready to propose here. But first, he needs some reassurance because he's noticed that since she's been in Israel, she hasn't really been returning his I love yous. So she says that she didn't mean to not return any of his I love yous. She's sorry for that. But it's been different, and he's been different since she got here. So she wants to worry about some other issues besides how often they'll say I love you, though. Like, am I going to be able to get this annulment that you said I have to get before I get married? Which comes back from way earlier. And she's like, that's one of the reasons she says she's putting walls up, and it's the annulment. That's why she's putting walls up, not because he gives her the ick.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
So yeah, I mean, that's what you're saying. Do you think she's like, it's getting worse and she's getting the ick from this guy? Or
like she is envisioning like jackrabbit sex, like based on his quote sensual mud bath, whatever. Like she's just like, this guy, he's just gonna go ham, and it's not gonna be good. I don't think he has the energy of his stamina to even do that. It's just gonna be like it. But I definitely would imagine like no foreplay sex. Yeah.
Like, okay, pants off, here it comes. You're like, no, bad. No.
Yeah.
Not fun.
Yeah,
right?
Especially because let's be real here, they're a little bit older. Like, that seems like a bad idea for everybody involved.
Yeah. I mean, things change. You need to have some extra assistance in there sometimes.
Right.
Yeah, get it down.
Goodness.
Like, but that's the thing, is he's not gonna. And that's what's frustrating to me about him, is this is one area where both of them acknowledge she knows more than you do.
But I don't even think he is acknowledging
he doesn't,
that. Yes.
And he doesn't. It's ridiculous for him to not acknowledge that.
He isn't acknowledging it, because I honestly, and this is why long term, I just don't know if this couple's really going to work out. He seems like a really misogynist, like he's the man. He knows everything.
How could a woman tell me anything?
Right. And just because I'm the man, even though I've had zero sex, like I must know more than you.
Yeah, right. It's definitely going to be like, no, it's not there. It's farther back, dude. No, that's not where it is. You have to stop.
Oh, goodness. No, this is going to be so bad. And, I thought it was kind of funny that producers were definitely trolling Meisha, right? Because she was like, what? I've been saying I love you back. And so they did like a playback of like what Nico was talking about. And she most certainly did not say she loved him back.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't either, because his I love yous came after he was being a giant douche to her. Like, And it's like, I love you, baby. And it's like,
that was the other thing that I will have to say is like, they were very clearly in some kind of like intense and like conversation. And it was almost like he muttered it under his breath, you know, like I could kind of see where you're like focused on what you're going to say because it's like an intense conversation. You didn't even hear that he said he loved you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know. It's I love yous need to be deployed better. Like it needs to be intentional and not just, well, they do need to be intentional too, because that's the thing. If you feel like, oh, you're saying it out of reflex or you're saying it to get out of being in trouble, then it does lose its meaning and you don't want to say it back.
Right. And I think in this case, it probably needs to be a standalone statement as well.
Yes. Sometimes you just need to say it without anything else. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And not tack it on to the end of an argument to take the sting out of it for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So leaving them, let's go to Riley and Violet. So this is only in episode 2, which is the newest episode. So Riley starts off, they're walking through the streets of Ho Chi Minh City and he's singing the praises of Vietnam and he asks Violet how she's feeling about him leaving. By the way, him just directly asking Violet, how are you feeling about X is a common theme for this whole thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, Violet says she was really upset about hearing about the private investigator and she still doesn't know how to process it. But this is the time that she has to spend with Riley getting juice and he gets tea and ice cream. Like, that's a weird combination.
I think that's pretty typical in
I guess
Vietnam.
I take that back because like when you get like Pat Bing Su, there's like green tea ice cream. There's literally tea flavored ice cream. Yeah. So anyway, he's sad because he has to leave and he apologizes for talking to the PI. So he knows now that the biggest thing their problems all stem from was, well, at least according to him, is their lack of communication or their inability to communicate properly. So he then asks her again directly, well, how do you feel about me? So she says, I'm in between. Like, you hurt me a lot, but I kind of like you, I guess. So we'll just have to wait and see. So Riley says they owe it to themselves to make a real effort after knowing each other for 2 years. But both say they're going to work on it, and each has their own list of things they kind of want the other person to work on. So before he finishes his ice cream, she asks if, maybe we'll get together tomorrow morning while you're packing your luggage, which is as close as we're going to get to like a big commitment here. So they play like the celebratory victory music, like, oh, isn't that nice? They're seeing each other in the morning. So then we skip to the morning with Violet coming back to the hotel to help him pack. And he's very bummed about having to go. So she gets there and immediately gives him shit about overpacking. Like she comes in and is like, why do you have all this stuff? Why did you pack all this? So before he leaves, he wants to make sure they are committed to continuing to communicate and working on things. And Riley thinks that, she has her walls up during this conversation, but he doesn't. He's wants to live that no regrets life now. So we get a really long, awkward process of Riley trying to say I love you without actually saying I love you.
That was so painful.
It was very painful. It starts with like, you know how I feel about you, right? I mean, I really, really care about you. And it might be deeper than caring, if you know what I mean. And she's like,
what?
I don't. She's like, say what you mean. What? Huh? And then he was like, okay, well, I don't, you know how hard it is to say, but I
you.
And she's like, just stop. Don't say that. Like, she's like, we need more time. So she feels like if he says it now, it's really just words because she needs to prove it by like actually changing for the better and not just saying things. So they walk out, doesn't even get a kiss goodbye. He like kisses her on the forehead. She didn't even look up and he gets going. So he's really not thrilled about that morning went. And as he leaves, he tells us that from here on out, the ball's in her court. It's all about what she wants for this relationship.
Really?
He wants it to continue, but it's all up to her. Okay, so like, I guess because we did had that mess up with the notes, I had to watch this part twice. And I feel like the first time I watched it, I thought that Violet was like, didn't want him to say it because it was like, if it's this hard, just don't fucking say it. Like, you don't mean it if it's this hard. But the second time I was like, she literally did not know what he was getting at.
Oh, I took it to mean both, right? She really didn't get it. And then once she was like, yeah, just don't say it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how I kind of took it.
It's one thing, because it's like, yeah, if it's this hard for you to say it, you don't mean it. Like,
yeah, no, and I super appreciate that she felt that way, but this is someone who does not want anything to do with this guy. she couldn't muster any kind of affection, any kind of like, you know, oh, last goodbye, like even fake it, you know, it was like, and I kind of appreciate that about Violet a little bit. Like she is not someone who's going to sugarcoat things or pretend when she doesn't feel that, you know, but at the same time, it's just like, man, if you don't feel it, just tell him to be on his way. Like, now this guy thinks like, oh, well, the ball's in your court, so I'm still in it. It's like, yeah, I wouldn't say she's necessarily stringing him along. You really should be able to read the writing on the wall. But at the same time, it's like, he shouldn't have to interpret what you're doing. Like, just be upfront. Be like, no, I'm not into this.
Well, I mean, and I feel like she just felt he like guilt tripped her into at least like, hang out with me until I leave, right? And she was like, all right, fine. I'll hang out with you until you leave. Like, okay. Yeah, we're going to continue this? Sure we are. Fantastic. Right. That said, based on the previews for next week, it might be a little bit
Oh, God, I know. Yeah, so in the previews, we see that Violet was pregnant with Riley's child, apparently,
or at least that's what she says. I think I know what Riley's gonna say, and
Riley's gonna say you're too old.
I think Riley's gonna say we never had sex. What are you talking about?
Oh gosh. Well, I was gonna say a couple things. That's actually true. Do we even know that they've slept together at all?
We definitely do not. It was never part of the season where they even did that thing. Did what happened last night? And they're like, well, that definitely did not happen.
Interesting.
And, like, it seems to me Riley would love to be on camera being like, that's right, I'm a big man.
Yeah,
I got some. Like,
yeah. I do have questions now that I'm thinking back on their sexless vacation. So
right, because she barely even like touched him. We didn't even see him kiss.
Right.
Like, really.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, then that seems like a funny thing to be bringing up. And I mean, Violet must not think that he's that dumb, right? Oh, yeah. Someone, immaculate conception. That's what's happening over here. Oh, but by the way, you're also the father with this immaculate conception.
Yes. We didn't do it. However, you're still, I stole some of your sperm while you were here. And now you're the father.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, there we go. That's what happened.
Yeah.
It's something. I don't know. Riley's a piece of work. Like, Violet seems completely disinterested in everything. It's another one of those. Why are you even here? I don't understand why he's so adamantly wanting her when she's not giving him anything back. That's what I don't get.
Yeah, I don't know. This couple is very weird. I don't see them being together for very long. I feel like he's just in it so that way he can play the victim at the end of the day, right? Like, oh, I didn't go hard on her. Like, she broke up with me. I'm heartbroken.
Oh, yeah, for sure. All right. So that's everybody, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Because thankfully we didn't get a last tirade scene. And so it does sound like next week is the last regular episode. And then they have a 2-part tell-all coming up. So better than the 4-part tell-all extravaganza they did after whatever HEA last time.
Yeah, I'm a little confused though, because they said that the first part of the tell-all is on the 23rd? Or the 24th, I mean, yeah.
24th,
so,
yes.
So next week is just the final episode, and then they'll...
Next week is just the final episode,
okay.
Yeah. And then they have the tell-all after that, I assume. We'll see. They could always string us along. So... Given that, students of the week.
I actually went with Razvan. Like,
yeah, me too.
He's just handling the situation, being real about it, which frustrates me, and I'm sure frustrates you too. It's like when people, a perfect example, Gino and Jasmine, they're not being real about their situation, right? Oh, I just love you. I can't imagine being without you. Like, let me ignore all the unhappiness, all the fighting, and like, let's just be together. And like, that's enough.
Right. And you're right. That's where he's at. He's like, hey, I definitely have a thing for you. That's why we're doing this all together. However, the time we've spent together has been mostly fighting. Right. And I don't want to do that for the rest of my life.
Yes. Yeah. Good for you, Razvan, for identifying that and identifying that that's not how you want to live with your life. So, yeah. All right. Yeah. What about Dunce?
I'm going to say Jasmine, just for that pathetic, like 20 minutes was all it took for her to go from, you should definitely get on the plane. We're done. We can't do this anymore. To please, 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 I love you so much. Take me back, take me back, take me back. Like, that's just awful.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with you. So we're definitely on the same page here.
Mm-hmm. All right. So life lessons.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So my life lesson is you need to be upfront about what you want in a relationship if it's going to be a deal breaker. And I feel like people aren't like that because they're like, well, I don't know what the other person feels like and I don't want it to be a deal breaker. But it's like, but if it is a deal breaker, you need to be upfront about it because you shouldn't be this far into a relationship and then figuring out like, oh, I guess I really do want to have children. I probably shouldn't have said that I'm open to not having children.
Yeah, I mean, mine's more or less on the same page. It was kind of the older you get, the earlier the conversation about children has to happen. And it needs to be an explicit one. You have to actually be honest with them and with yourself with how willing you are to have kids, because it can't be, you're right, because I feel like a lot of people say maybe just because they think that giving a hard yes or a hard no is going to end the relationship. And the problem is like you said, that hard yes or hard no is going to end the relationship. Yeah. It's just a matter of whether it does it now or whether you're in deeper and, more committed when that happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, we apologize for having to double up this week. Once again, we have had kind of a crazy end of the summer. Things have been really nuts, but will we be back with the season finale next week? So until then. Okay, bye.
All right, see everybody then.